All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to tonight's call. It is Wednesday, September the 17th of 2025, and this is the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan call. So tonight, you should be seeing up on the screen. Let me just double check that you're seeing it. You should be seeing. It is okay. It's the list, right? Yeah. List of topics. Good. Okay, wonderful. All right. So you should be seeing this list of topics. And the reason I like to bring that up is tell you where we started, where we are, where we're going, and then what's after that. So again, just to reiterate, when we do this course here, we are following a strategic plan that has been developed over a lot of hours and a lot of time. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my camera stuff here. It's a little banged up here tonight. This is a course that's a strategic course that teaches you how this business really works. And listen, if you're just newer to this business or just getting started, I cannot emphasize how often, and Paul and I can empathize with this right now, talking about it earlier tonight. You have to stop running around looking for shiny objects and this amazing thing that's going to come out of the sky that's going to solve all your problems. It is you. You have to get a big old good working mirror and you have to look in there and say, it is me. I will either make this business plan work or I will not make it work. But if you don't stare at the strategic way that a business actually works and you start looking at other things, you're running away. It's cowardice, actually, as a small business person. When you know that something actually has been discovered to work a certain way, and then you don't work that plan. And I say it's cowardice because in the animal brain, that's what makes us run away from actually doing what we have to do. So many of my friends that I've coached with and been in the business with a long time, they understand that agents will do almost anything other than what they're supposed to do. And we know that because we're guilty of that ourselves, right? So when I show you 12 steps to run a business, those 12 steps, in my opinion, which is crafted over 26 years of actually doing the job, probably now about 22 or so of coaching it, I have really just studied how does the business work. I'm not really in this for some ego hunt to try to tell you what my opinion is. I'm going to hunt for myself to discover what is the path of least resistance to make this business work for me and my family. And subsequently, here I am sharing it with you, telling you here's what I've discovered. So if it wasn't working day in and day out, then I wouldn't be doing it because I have to make it work. I have to make it work also for the Griffin brokerage, which is now proliferated into 4 states. And there's a lot of you that we're responsible for out there. So I'm telling you, there is no secret pill. There won't be a day where another door opens up and there's a secret that's revealed to you. It gets revealed not just to you, but I give this away to the public so that they see this is what it is, right? So when you go through these 12 steps, in the beginning, I explained the book that provoked me to think strategically before I did anything tactically. And I'll explain the difference. A strategy is to get up above something holistically and look at it and continue to ask the questions. How does that business work? And if I'm to work in it, can I craft a plan to take advantage of the way that works? That's a strategic thinking, right? You're trying to see the whole thing holistically. Tactically is once you start to get those strategies, you break those strategies into pieces. And that's what this 12 step is. We're trying to bring you along a business model that is it's actually several things based on Michael Gerber's model or framework. And his framework is for small business people in general, let alone real estate specifically. So we're able to plug into this idea that, okay, there's some sort of an entrepreneurial visionary type of thing. We have to envision how this business works, and then for ourselves, and then we have to envision who we are in that context, right? So that's how that goes. Next, you get more into the managerial strategies. The managerial strategies about marketing. The managerial strategies about converting a contact from a lead to a prospect to a client. And that's where we find ourselves tonight. We're still in that conversion process where we go through and we start talking about caring for clients, because that's the part right before they go into this closing piece of it. And I'm sitting here looking at a text. off of a fresh caring for my client strategy tonight, but I'll show you how it was in the very beginning strategically how we set these people up who knew me and chose me because their brother used to work with me before he passed from cancer. So they knew me in that context, but they did not know me in the context of a framework and a plan. So we reframed it, and that brings it to a client moment where we are probably just about to move them over into the closing module next week. We go over that. So this is something I really do. And it helps me so much to be thinking strategically that I don't waste time, that I was able to do something based on a strategy tactically today. And I'll explain that when I get into this a little bit more on the sell side. So this is actually stuff that really works and helps me stay framed in the context of not just one deal, but in my case, multiple deals, right? So if this is the way universally it works on one contact going through the whole assembly line, then it can be scaled. Paul and I talked about this too the other night. Oftentimes, I will talk to you about doing multiple open houses or dealing with multiple clients. But I want you to understand that even if you don't have one client yet, you have a way to copy me identically on one individual contact. That's it. Going all the way back to the beginning, even if it's just you're envisioning getting your first contact, that's fine. So I want you to understand, I'm just talking about the scale I'm at. But like, for example, tonight, Bobby Elon, my man, met me at this class, ended up joining me as a coaching member. And microeconomically, we talk about one at a time. Daniel Gonzalez, not too long ago, came in here based on Kathy's recruitment, sat with me across the table, and has her first listing. So it's got nothing to do with me at scale. It's got everything to do with me breaking out how you would bring one contact through from start to finish in a business model. And that's how you understand how business actually works, right? That's how you understand it. So this is, you're not getting away from this. You can't run away. You can't hear me talk about these 12 steps and say, oh, well, I'll do this or I'll do that or it doesn't. No, that's all wrong. That's everything that's wrong with real estate agents trying to build a business. They don't understand that there could be actually a universal, description of how the business works, and then understanding that they can't avoid doing it that way. See, that's what you're referring to when you call something immutable. It's unbreakable. There's an unbreakable way that the business works. Now, what puts pressure on that way that a business works? Macroeconomics, absolutely. The interest rates in the States today were lowered at the Fed funds level. That had already been being baked in by the bond market for mortgage-backed securities, and the interest rates had gone lower based on those factors, which are mind-boggling. Duran and I were talking about that today. Here we are. We're the ones that actually make these deals happen at this level. We have no idea how it happens on Wall Street. None. But we have to be conscious of that. So sure, those macroeconomic things can affect the way that we do business, and we need to be conscious of it. But it's not going to change the immutable way that a seller lists and sells their property, that a buyer goes out and hunts and buys a property. It's just not going to change those unbreakable ways. It will bring pressure on the decision-making process, yes. And you do have to be cognizant of those things. But that doesn't change the business model, and that's what's so delicious about it. Right? That's what I love about a good business model, is no matter what's happening macroeconomically in the world, it won't change the way that you do things. It will change the way that people react to certain things, but they're still going to have to go all through these steps, right? So that's what this plan does, is it breaks it down piece by piece. In the very first week, I explain the entirety of the model. The next week, I go into talking about, okay, it's a business. So in that model, we've got to set some North Star financially. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be having this conversation with me, right? And that's the business vision. Then, or the beginnings of one, right? So we see the model, we set the financial goal. Now we say, who do I have to become to be a person that, here's the key, stays disciplined in there? I had a question today that said, if all things were equal and everybody had the magic formula, what's the difference between brokerages? What's the difference between agents? Discipline to execute. So you have to create a self-image for yourself as somebody who's disciplined to stay in there and execute the plan, not the person who looks around on the internet and sees this shiny object or this great idea. That is your animal brain wanting you to procrastinate. I have had to fight mine for years. I'm scared to listen to any of that crap and stop executing the plan. And as long as the plan execution keeps working for me, yes, of course, on Thursdays with my mastermind, I take a look around. I see what's happening in the world. I see if like Instagram has changed my business. Nope. I see if AI has changed my business a little bit. I get to write my blog articles that way and help convert it. So yes, I incorporated that. So, you see, there are things like that that I will look at, but they don't change the basics of this plan. Then we get into content versus social media. There's a huge difference. So many of you don't even realize that to be a professional, you need to be talking about the marketplace and how it's doing. And that comes from, a piece of content, and you need to know how to make that content. I talked to Paul tonight too. If you don't know how to make a buyer and a seller package based on content, you have no unique selling proposition. See, this course becomes very logical based on immutable laws of business, not just what I put together, but business. If you don't have content that shows you as a professional and you don't organize that unique way, you don't even have a unique selling proposition. And that's marketing 101. And then marketing 102 class is how to match that up with the right person called an avatar. So if I was teaching a basics in marketing class, this is the order I'd put them in. So now, after you have all that, then and only then can you go out and try to identify a lead who meets the business model. Number one, are they a listing lead? Number two, are they like the avatar type of stuff that you want with some of the demographics? You won't know the psychographics till you use the scripts and talk to them. Hey, why? How motivated? So you see, it's this logical step after logical step after logical step. And that's why it is so, I will repeat the word delicious, to have something in the right order, because you don't have to go out and do all of this research, this work, and put it in order. You need to be the one that executes it, right? So then we talked about this too, and Paul and I talked about, and he did a good job going back, and all my one-on-one clients and partners / him, Grant, Dean now, that these people have to go back themselves and lead by example and show their vulnerabilities to say, I am human, I will fall off of this. But the great news is I knew where to go, and I went and cleaned up my prospect list. Why? Because when I babysit my prospect list with all the content updates that they require, suddenly they say, have me, let me come over, let me give a listing presentation, let me turn me into a client. I'm in the middle of one of those. The gal's already dropped 2 agents because nobody could solve the vision for where she's going. I went in for one hour, and now she's asking me to come back. She said, please don't have him do it on a Zoom or on a phone call. I liked when he was sitting in front of me. I felt so calm. Can you come back and talk to me? I'm ready to do this, right? So all of this is how to lead up to the creation of a proper client. And you're going to see when I go through, because what I've done with this course is I've condensed caring for seller and buyer clients into one core week. So we're going to go through this together. Okay. But that's how it's a narrative. You see how I'm able to narrate the story of the plan to you. I can narrate it. It's smooth. It's fluid. That's what you're looking for in a plan, is some sort of cohesiveness where you can understand the storybook start to finish. And it's remedial or simple, right? Because it's only 12 steps. It's really just taking you through the assembly line of how a small business in real estate works immutably, and so that you can understand it. Now, of course, there are proprietary things that we have developed. The way that we put together a unique selling proposition, the handwritten, process I went through to write the seller course, to write the buyer course, to organize it. All of the scripts have been pounded on for many years. They're proprietary tactics for us. The cover letters are proprietary tactics for us. Yes, all the tactical stuff on how we do that stuff, of course, it's unique to us. And it's not really a negotiable. If you're being trained and coached by us, we're saying, no, do it exactly this way. Go out there, learn it, and keep going back and forth until the wiring your brain is doing it. But I said to somebody today, here's the problem. If you're not coachable, so what how good the plan is? Don't go out into the wilderness and tell me, oh, I did it and it didn't work. No, you never got coached. It's like a football player who's a wide receiver, gets to Division I football, which is a lot different from high school, goes to practice one day and says, oh, I got this route down, and goes out and goes the wrong way. Well, you told no, you need to be coached and corrected until your wiring is that that's the route. So when you hear the call for the play, you know exactly subconsciously where it's at. Well, that takes time. That's repetition inside of this framework. So you begin to know the system. You see it every week in professional sports, every week, and anywhere else. If you go into a Starbucks, you're watching the refinement of a system. And usually most of the baristas at Starbucks don't really make egregious mistakes regularly. And that's a place that's going at speed. Why? Everything is systematic. They are trained to be in a system. And you notice they're not running around. Each person plays a specialized role. So you see this methodology in your face everywhere. Go to Chick-fil-A, watch it there. So anywhere where you will find a well-run business, most likely you have found a business that has a very clear strategic plan and then very clear tactics, right? So strategically, like if you were up above a coffee shop and you looked at a Starbucks, you would look at the assembly line just like we do. Only ours is the service business. So if you walk into a Starbucks, forget about using the app. Let's just pretend it's just a walk-in. You walk in, you're funneled into a certain place. You are met by somebody who is working the cash register, period, right? I'm not saying that sometimes they don't double up, but there's somebody right there to greet you and move that line. Everything's pre-programmed. They hit what you want. They hit what goes on there with all those software systems. It goes right down the line to somebody, and it goes in line so that it gets produced. So you go down, you pay with your app or whatever you do. You walk down, you stand down there like a sheeple, waiting for your name to be called. It comes out, there's a label on it that was produced by the label maker, and that drink is there. Now, again, sometimes there are mistakes, but boom, there's a solution for that too. Mea culpa, drinks on us. If you want to keep that one, go ahead. Let me make this, right? Or here's a gift card or whatever. So the best businesses obsess over this. So you can't go to a Starbucks expecting to be in a perfect situation for coffee and then go treat a client differently from that in your own business. Let that sink in. You are being judged based on the best businesses that the consumer has been confronted with that day, that week. If I pick up the phone and I book a Disney cruise, and the same day I deal with you as an agent, that's the standard, folks. That's the way we judge things. So there's a reason why we try to raise the standard here and make it work like one of these fine-tuned businesses. It's everything. It's everything, right? In fact, it's not everything. It's the only thing. A systematic way is the only way to do things. People just don't buy that, right? In the beginning, because it comes dressed in overalls and looks like work, right? That's what's the real problem at the core of this. So I'm going to say that every single week you hear me. You have to stay systematic in your approach if you expect to raise your standard, be unique and different, and nobody knows that you're treating them systematically, because everything's so organized. All they can judge you on is how they're being treated and how empowered they feel, right? Okay, so let's get into these things tonight here. I'm going to share this tab instead. You should be seeing Caring for Sellers, and you should see, whoops, that didn't work. You should see a slideshow beginning now. If not, somebody scream at me. So I'm going to go through the sellers, the buyers, and at the end of this, I repeat, there's a coachable moment for you at the end of every one of these lectures, okay? I have to get the course done, but I am available for coaching. So when I'm asking you to ask me a question, that's not a good sign, business person. It's not a good sign, but I'm nervous. And that's not a good sign to be a business person. Being milk toasty and not coming into the front of the line asking your questions is why your business is struggling. And that's why Danielle, in particular, Annabelle for years, Christine Fitzgerald now, I know the people that do well because they come and they ask their questions so that they make themselves thrown into a coachable moment, right? That's what they do. And that's why they sell houses, because they find their mistakes, they tweak them. Because a lot of times in a system, you say, but I did it just that way. No, you didn't. You're close, but you didn't. And the subtleties and the refinements matter, okay? So caring for your sellers. So again, you're going to watch what I'm doing here. I'm about to go backwards in time. Now, you didn't have to be on every call before this to hear me say, I'm going to go back in time to the beginning of a relationship with a seller like the one we just started with this gal, okay? So the best beginning to a relationship with a seller is to give away your best what to do information for free. So the elderly gal that I'm talking about that I went out to see, she's an expired listing. Kate Woods, who's one of our new telemarketers working for me directly, she made a call out to this gal in the expired pile. She had a nice conversation with her. She could tell the gal was nervous, so she couldn't really read her over the phone. So what happened was the gal said yes. She sent the information. The information changed the way that this gal saw us. And by the way, it turns out this gal had a real estate license in Long Island once upon a time ago. So I show up and immediately I can tell I'm going to like her. She's funny at the front door. She is older. The property looks like it's pretty reasonable. Where it expired, I'm like, geez, this sounds like a pretty good deal. So I go in there and I see not only have we given away our best what to do information for free, but also I can see what's happened so far. So when you give away your best information for free, you empower the seller and you open up a competitionless lane. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It almost sounds arrogant to say that I can teach you how to be in a competitionless lane. That doesn't mean I can teach you how to be competitionless. That's not what it means. It means that when you have a unique selling proposition, manner of doing business by giving away your best what to do information for free, and if you're part of Griffin or TRC, you already know how to do that. You have a booklet that you can print out. You have 5 or 6 properties that you would have printed with pictures, details, and maps, and you have a 1-page statistical market update. That's all your best what to do type of information. The plan tells them what to do. It leads them into looking at the competition on the solds, and it tells them macroeconomically how the market is. So what to do is to consider all this. That's what I mean by it. So because you've taken the time to do all that, and again, yes, I did it. Yes, I wrote it. So yes, you need to read it, rip it apart in your own mind so you make it your own. You need to make what I did for you your own, so that that whole thing that you're giving away is yours authentically. You own that. And when you do that, you will empower the seller with information. We live in the information age, but yet nobody thinks about it like this, right? So you're making an information product, which could be sold. It's valuable enough. It's the booklet alone and the instructions, plus the organized information, which took your time, effort, money, etc. There's a value to it. So when you give that away in the right order and it's easy to consume or easier to consume, then you empower somebody and you open up a lane within which you can further compete, presuming that that avatar has the psychographics to match, meaning they still have a real reason why they want to sell this property. And there is a motivation that's in there somewhere. Maybe it's bubbling a little lower than it is because they're afraid. And if you can solve it, they're instantly at 10. Well, it looks like that might have happened just the other day, yesterday or Monday. Went out Monday, and this is Wednesday, and I'm going back Friday. Because why? There was a real reason why. Her husband died a year ago. She's nervous. She wants to rent. She can't stand all this money tied up in this house. She wants to see it in her bank account. Period. It's pretty easy. So she felt empowered by the information. More importantly, when I met her, she felt even more empowered when she had my insight that went with it. And she felt very empowered by the vision I created. And I said, why didn't anybody show you some places to go to? By the way, I find that pretty common, especially with older people. Nobody helped them find where they were going. Everybody's so focused on selling their house, and nobody created the full vision. So we did math and everything. And when I was done, I was in a competitionless lane. I know she's talking to another real estate agency. I know she fired two already. And immediately I was in a lane doing things differently from anybody she'd ever met. How do I know that? She validated it. She kept saying, that was interesting, right? That was interesting. And now she's referring to my expertise as she talks to Kate. And she's saying, no, I want him back in the house. Okay. So it's competitionless. I'm not up against somebody else. It's not me or somebody else in a cattle call. It's me and this gal being empowered, continuing to create that vision and hold her hand so she can see it. So the next step is I need to go in there with a bunch of properties that she could rent. I need to show them to her. I need to maybe even book an appointment to go show her one physically to see how she reacts to it, to get into it, see if those come up regularly. I have to finish the job. I have to do the job. And that's how you empower somebody, right? So how do you set yourself up for that clear listing and selling process? Well, it's best to chunk up your steps and educate the seller that you'll be following an exact process and reviewing it with them along the way. Now, when I showed her the 7 steps there and I was caring for it, now remember, I'm talking about client care. I'm not even at the client stage yet. See what I'm saying? I've got 3 bullet points here I'm talking to you about, and I haven't turned anybody into a client yet. So it's how I'm setting myself for success if they choose me. So it's not like after they choose me, I'm talking to you. I'm telling you before. I'm telling you go back in time and think about the seller package and the 7-step plan, the unique selling proposition. Why did we, way back early in this course, why did we talk about making it? Because it needed to get to her. Then I needed to get to her to explain it to her. See, those are prospects. I'm caring for this prospect. She's not a client yet. She's still in last week's course. I'm caring for this prospect so the wolves don't get her. What wolf? 1, she gets scared to death and decides to keep it, even though she doesn't want to. 2, somebody else comes in and convinces her that they have some better plan. I don't know. So I'm caring for this white-knuckled. We're not letting her anywhere near anybody else while we continue to keep her focused, just like I asked you at the beginning of the call. Keep focused. You have to keep focused on a plan. You have to keep your seller focused on a plan so that you become a logical choice to guide them, right? Next, once we cross over and she says it's go time, establishing a transparent checklisted process for onboarding a listing and including the seller is critical because people will support what they help create, right? So the idea is that once it's go, in my case, here we go again, okay? I've expanded. So on my assembly line, I am not the one person's, coffee shop. I am now a little bit more like a Starbucks. So I don't move into the checklisted point. I make a soft handoff to Laura where I say, there is an onboarder, my client care manager, who's going to go through a checklist of things to get this done. I know you were a realtor. I know you've done this before, but we include you a little bit more in that process, right? So it's very clear about what we're doing the minute that person makes the commitment to be with us, right? So how do you define caring for a seller once they are there, right? Well, it's crucial to maintain this authority over the process and not be afraid of telling the seller, okay, what must happen to get the property sold, especially when it comes to lowering the price, which I will talk about today. I have gotten 1, 2, I feel like I did a 3rd price reduction too this week. Because macroeconomically, yes, the rates came down. It's already baked in, but that's not miraculously going to change the marketplace. And we have a little window where we should get things done with this kind of momentum because it might cool off again. Who knows? We got a really shaky economy, if you ask me, right? And I could show you some of the stats to show that. So I'm always going to maintain the authority over the system. And authority is a tricky word. It's not bullying. It's not yelling at anyone. It's not raising your voice. It's belief. Authority is belief that I have a 7-step plan that is universally as sound as they come, and I can put your situation into it so that we have a good bone structure. And yes, of course, there are things unique to you that if you want to get from here to the rental and get this liquidated and get moved out of here, you have to listen to me. And that includes if we don't have the right price, then we're going to have to tweak that. And that's why I always do a net sheet so that somebody can look at what they'll walk away with after all expenses. It's stunning to me how I feel like I'm the only one that does that. Stunning. And I do it conservatively. I don't show them the pie in the sky number. I say, listen, let's do this conservatively. Take a look at that bottom line. Look at what that means for you, right? Now, how detailed and organized is your closing process? Well, that's going to be as you move. So I did before client. I'm talking about transparency, about the checklist in the middle when they become a client. And I'm also getting her set up to move, right? So establishing a checklisted process for closing a listing, including the seller in that process, is critical because happy sellers are likely to repeat and refer. So again, you can see the whole discussion with the client is about this process, right? So you start your listing process by educating your seller rather than trying to take the listing. Stop taking the listing. Stop walking in places and telling people, oh, you have to paint this. That's what she spent the first 15 minutes doing. I don't want to be told that I have to move this. I don't want to be told to paint that. I don't want to be told to, no problem. No problem. Don't worry about that. In fact, I'm not even at that yet. Tell me a little bit of why are we doing this at all? Why are you moving? Where are you going? What's happening here? I heard that you had something in Florida. Yeah, but I want to be here. And, okay, what happened? Why not just stay here? It's a beautiful house. Well, I hate seeing this money tied up. Everybody's in such a hurry to take. Nobody will sit and have an actual conversation with this seller before they become a client to establish this relationship of trust. Before we even showed up, she had information. Very clear, right? Okay, let's go to the buy side now. On the buy side, he said, as he shared that tab, get the slideshow going, it's going to sound very similar, but I'll give you a couple anecdotes that are differently. Same thing. Here we go again. But I will tell you, people are lazy on the buy side because, see, the sell side's a little bit more clear. You know that there's a listing. You know that they have to sign a listing contract to get there. So you know all that stuff, right? So it's pretty clear that that's what it is. So in the buy side, you take it for granted a little bit more. You meet somebody at an open house. It's not quite a presentation like it is at a listing presentation. You get nervous. You don't think you should be doing something. And even some of my agents here, some of my agents have done an open house and not ensured that there were buyer packages and seller packages in the house. Come on. We teach that 101. And by the way, for all my agents, Griffins, if you borrow one of my listings and you walk out of an open house and you do not tell us that there are no more buyer and seller packages for me or the next person, you will get tased into not making that mistake again, right? Because the most important thing in everything that we do goes all the way back to the unique selling proposition. If you want to establish a great relationship with a seller, and in this case, a buyer from the start, you'll have to give them the unique selling proposition, information, product if you want to start to compete for that client relationship in a competitionless lane. I gave him my business card. Nobody calls you. It just doesn't work like that. A business card is a good identifier maybe once they've established you, or they're just generally curious and they're not going to buy, but they want to know who you are and they want to go stalk your stuff. Great. But your calling card is a unique selling proposition that we taught you how to make in week, I think, 3. If you miss that one, watch it 17,000 times until you get that through your head, because you're not going to establish a relationship with a buyer without giving away your best what to do information for free if you're a buyer. And of course, here we go again. Why? You're empowering the buyer, but especially on the buy side. The seller, I think, when you finally get into their house and you're prospecting them in the house, trying to turn them to a client, it's very much about that math. Very much. Tips on what to do and what not to do. Yes, but everybody can do that. When you do an analysis and then a net sheet, That's all quantitative stuff. Every one of you Griffins and TRCs have access to the videos on how to do that. You better become proficient in that or you'll have no advantage quantitatively. And if you do, holy moly, are you different, right? But again, by giving the buyer a buyer plan, because most buyers are just running around on their phones, looking at properties. Nobody's ever told them that there are immutable laws to properly going through the buying process. This is one of the biggest financial assets you'll ever buy in your life. And people are hurrying through it with zero plan. What? That is the dumbest thing that people can do. So at least take a copy of our plan. At least then go look at what the money's buying. So when you're running around to open houses, you can establish actual sold prices versus just guessing, because we have expireds in every market. And what's an expired? Something that was priced incorrectly, too high. It wasn't low enough into the zone. So you're looking at expireds, some stuff that canceled and was wrong, withdraws and was wrong. So you need an education on what the money's buying, right? Then you need that reconciliation between, 5 million bought this, but it didn't buy that. See what I mean? They need this stuff. So when you give it to them in an organized fashion, you're the only one that empowers them. And still, instead of trying to say, are you working with an agent? Are you working with an agent? Are you working with an agent? Prospects pursued run away. And you never get to the client stage with a buyer unless you empower them and you draw them in. Like, wow, that guy at that open house was quite different. He sent me away this package of information. Let's look this guy up online. And then they go find me and they figure it out. And now we follow up. Hey, we gave you that package. I know you had some other stuff. Would love to set you up with a private search in MLS and send it to you that way. Also, would love to update you on that market update. We actually do one every single month and we update it. So I'd love to send that stuff to you. May I? Great. Wonderful. Hey, I'd love to show you some of your favorites too. I know you're out there running around, but if I go with you, I can actually look at one of your favorites live with you, tell you what I see, do an analysis, and tell you what I think it's actually worth, right? So how do you set yourself up for that acquisition? Well, you chunk the steps up and you begin to demonstrate it to them, right? You don't have to always just say, hey, let's sit down. I'm going to tell you the 6 steps to buy. You actually begin to do it. You act as if. So these plans, by the way, are strategies for your behavior, right? It's not necessarily we have to jam it down the seller's throat or the buyer's throat. It's keeping you in line. So if you reset with the buyer, you don't have to tell them, hey, do you have a representative? Like, that's great. Say, you working with an agent? No. Then just act as if you're already representing them. You don't have to say, hey, we're going to sign a buyer-client contract. No, not yet. Demonstrate to them. Give them a dramatic demonstration of how that's all working, right? And then you're empowering them by doing it. Now, when it's appropriate and you've established value with them and they begin to lean in and they're asking you questions and you want to go see a property, okay, listen, in order to see that, I'm just going to ask that you sign this little agreement with me here because we have to based on the state. And also, I would like to know that before I go out there, I have a little bit of loyalty here, right? So whatever you decide there, you're not going to get that far without chunking up the process, demonstrating it, and showing them how you work with people, right? That's what this means. Next, same thing. How detailed and organized is your onboarding? Well, what's that mean? Well, once they establish, sure, I'd love to be set up. How well did you put them into MLS? A lot of those MLSs are double opt-ins. I can't believe my telemarketers still don't get that. I'm getting rejections. Hey, this guy never opted in to get these things online. I'm telling Laura, Kathy, Kate, Maria, you got to get on the phone with this person and onboard them properly. They're not consuming the information from you. You made an offer and you didn't fulfill on it. That's an onboarding process. So establishing how you're following this transparent checklisted way of doing these things. I'm going to automate this. Then Danny's email is going to come to you once a month. You can listen to what he has to say there. And then I will follow up with you from time to time to see that you get it, right? So again, it's the same thing. It's critical to maintain authority over the process by not being afraid to tell the buyer what must happen, how they should go through this process, especially when it comes to, here we go again on price, them negotiating a price. That's why I love me a good dry run when I take a buyer out there and show that buyer, look at, I want to see one of your favorites. I'm going to tell you what I see and what I think. Then I'm going to have an analysis done and I'm going to go over it with you so you can see why it is or isn't a good number. And sometimes I might tell you, don't chase that, which, by the way, I did. I picked up a buyer at an open house by giving away this information. She was very much interested in our help. We hit it off personally on top of that, right? And so they couldn't quite come to bring themselves to make an offer in mind. So they said, could we go see a few things? I said, yep, let's go see some of your favorites. So we did that. We looked at one. We did an analysis. We continued to demonstrate our prowess. Then we went to see another one. They fell in love with it. We wrote an offer a little bit under 2.25. We wrote it at 2.2, I think, or a little bit less. We found out there were multiple offers. I said, let's go to full price. That's it. It turns out when I told them to stop there, I was right. I said, it sounds like somebody's bidding against themselves. Well, I'll be danged if somebody didn't spend another $360,000 over the asking price. So we're like, yep, see, I was right. You didn't chase that one. Then they came back and ended up buying mine, double-ended. I gave a better deal. So because I got both sides, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's not rocket science. You just got to execute exactly what I'm telling you. So lastly, the closing process. It's the same thing, establishing that transparent checklisted process. And this one's complicated. We have to have a builder shut the wall down between these two units that were opened up in this beautiful condominium building. There are other things about the furniture that we have to do. She's very nervous, Nellie, and we are right on top of her because we want her to repeat and refer badly because that's the right place, right? Pro tip, start your buying process by educating your buyer rather than trying to take their business. Same thing. So it's identical, okay? All right, that's the lecture for tonight. So here we go. I got some time for your coaching. So I will take questions about anything in particular here, and we'll go from there, okay? I know it's a lot of talking and it echoes for a second there, so let me know what I can help with. Don't all jump at once. It's you again. It's good. See, there's the most coach. Hey, everybody, there's the most coachable person you'll ever see on any of these calls. And that's why he has transformed his business like I transformed mine. The guy just doesn't stop asking his own questions and tweaking it. And that's why he has a good business. Go ahead, Senor. Yeah, 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 yeah. 100%. 100%. And I think that's where you have to trust the system. But let's go back to that beginning point that you talked about. I think that's the point to discuss. You know, I say it so quickly in this course, but there is an emphasis on a moment there. And it's for the telemarketers and the agents when they're prospecting as well. I think when you make your offer to somebody, right? So let's say somebody comes into that open house. Thank you so much for coming. You got to maintain that authority. Thank you so much for coming. The seller's asked that I have everybody sign in. So if you don't mind doing so before you could even say before you take a tour of the house, right? If you sign in before you take a tour, that just hit me. Maybe that's the language you need if you're feeling uncomfortable before you take a tour of the house, right? And then you can take one of those brochures and take a tour because you have to remember the law of authority says to you, this is a private residence. I am in charge of it. So for safety purposes and organized purposes, you need to sign in. That's your internal thought. The language is a little softer than that, a little bit more pleasant than that, but it's before you take a walk through the house. I think you should probably throw that in. Now, I had a couple gals come through and they're like, look at, don't want to fully sign in because of, privacy. I could put your first name down. And they did. You know what I mean? They were willing to do that. And they were pleasant, but I think they legitimately felt that way. So I respected that. I didn't love it, but I respected it, right? I'm not going to turn business away. I sized it up. I thought it was a legitimate request and I was okay with it. Well, it turns out she also knew my grandmother and she asked about her and it was, a touching moment. So, I was glad I wasn't such a hard ass about it. But I think 99% of the time I get somebody to sign in, right? Now, the next piece is when they sign in and you look down and you see that there are certain people that don't have an agent, don't just assume that that's a prospectable moment. Feel it out a little bit, go a little bit further. I think you have to be very judicious about who's going to make it into your prospects club. You're recruiting, you're looking, you're not desperate. But I think, especially agents that are newer to this, they get desperate. And they get overly excited and they think everybody that signs in without somebody is an avatar. But see, that's why in this course we talk about avatars so much. They can have the demographics, meaning they come in, they look well-heeled, they come into a house that you would love to sell a buy side on too, right? Because you've got that listing. Wonderful. That all fits the demographic. But the psychographics you don't know anything about yet. So just like a telemarketer, I think you can work on the questions that lead to those psychographics while you're there. So let's presume that somebody comes in, they sign in and they don't have an agent. They've taken that, right? Now, what I've learned to do is be very quiet while they do it. And it's really awkward sometimes when they're slow and their spouse is sitting there. So I'll drift over to the window. I'll even turn my back a little bit just so they understand that the task at hand is finish signing in, right? I'm not going to interrupt you, right? So now, or I'll make very small talk with the spouse, the family, beautiful day, huh? Something like that. I won't say too much because I want there to be that awkward silence for lead generation to be completed, right? Now, I look down and I always say, first of all, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. So I reward the behavior with a thank you, right? Because I do appreciate you playing my game. And I mean that, right? Feel free to take that. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, feel free to take that brochure and on the inside, so it doesn't fall on the floor, there's an MLS sheet with all of the details. Plus, we add a fact sheet to it. It's a quick cheat sheet there, right? So that's in there too. And then feel free to take a peek. It's a beautiful Royal Barry Wills house. Lots of room on the first floor, a couple rooms upstairs. So I might give them a couple punches like that, right? Now, if they linger or they're friendly or whatever, I do want to begin my qualification. Are you folks looking for yourselves? I want to know that I have a decision maker in front of me, right? Are you folks looking for yourselves? Great. And my quip or my line is, how goes the hunt, right? Say it your way. How goes the search? Whatever you want to say. We just get started, or geez, we're close, or oh, we have a house to sell. They'll reveal a lot in those moments, right? They'll reveal a lot. So I'm starting to get to why without having to ask why, right? How goes the search is very much equivalent, of timing and things like that. It's always a series of questions that can provoke. I'm getting to the why. How goes the hunt typically for me will reveal a why if they're serious, right? Well, we just got started, but we sold our house in Connecticut. We've always wanted to move here. I'm getting the why, right? And I'm kind of getting the feeling for the motivation. I don't necessarily have to club them over the head with, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? I wrote those scripts that way for a telephone, because on a telephone, you can't do what you can do when you're physically there. Now, there is an occasion where it's like, oh, wow, you guys sound pretty motivated. Would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to sell the house in Connecticut? Oh, we're an 11 if we can find the house. Well, listen, I notice you're not working with anybody. Let me give you a package of information beyond just this house in case this house doesn't work for you. Boom. See what I mean? So I have decided, because you've given me enough of a why and you sound motivated inside the next 12 months to me, I can frame it different ways, but I know that sounds to be it's the case now. I'm going to make the unique selling proposition offer to you. It's not even really an offer. It's so easy when somebody's physically there and you've already qualified them. How are they going to say no to that? Listen, in here, what you'll see is there's a bunch of sold properties. So you're in this one here, but I got a bunch of sold properties around here in this price range. You see what the money's buying. Feel free to drive by those too. They're all within a half-mile radius, so you can see what this market's bearing. And of course, there's a few for sales in there too. I know you can use your phone, but sometimes it's nicer to have it printed out. But also take a look at this. There's a market update in here. It shows you the exact direction of current market pricing because a lot of buyers are asking me questions about the market. Now, this is where if the conversation is thick. Now, remember, this is like basically a presentation happening here, right? So I am acting as if I am going to represent them, but I've never mentioned, could I represent you? You know, are you working with, I know you're not working with somebody. You would have put that down. So I'm just going to act as if I'm already representing you by giving you this unique selling proposition package of information, which I will give you and go over with you, especially if you become my buyer client. But I'm going to give a free sampling of what that client level service might feel like, right? So now I go through all of that stuff with them. Now, Grant, after all of that, I decide, is there going to be an easy follow-up? And I always do say, hey, listen, let me take a look. Did I get your email written down here? Because I want to make sure I can get you those other properties we talked about. So now I can go back and clean up the lead generation information because I've definitely prospected them. So I go back and look, and now they're open to giving me a telephone number. And I just make it presumptuous. Say, listen, let me just make sure I can read this email. You didn't give me a number. Why don't you give me that? Because Laura's going to have some questions on how to tweak it. So we presume it. And then the follow-up has to happen, you know, Monday morning to set them up, or even that day. If you go back and at the end of the day, you set it up. Now, just because it was a good moment in the house doesn't mean that you're the most important thing to them. They're important to you, but you're not the most important thing to them. And what you've entered is into the prospect follow-up stage, which you know is critical, okay? And so they have a lot of other things happening in their lives. So you can't just presume. We overuse that word ghosted. Oh, I got ghosted. Well, how do you know you got ghosted? Ghosted is when they dump you and they went with somebody else and bought with somebody else. Okay. That's when they got ghosted. But hopefully you did a lot more qualifying and you really saw that nobody was working with them. They did establish this and they're appreciating you. You're feeling that vibe. Right? Now, if you want to establish, like we do with the scripts, I'm going to call you Monday to get this set up correctly. Is there a better time on Monday to call you to establish this? So that's immediately like, it's very similar to the time, like if you mail the package and you call them on Thursday at 4:00 to make sure they got the package, that's the same thing as an open house person. I will call you Monday. Oh, great. After 5. Okay. I'll make a note. After 5. I just want to get the parameters exactly. I want to make sure the first email comes through. I want to make sure you see it. So you're trying to establish what? The delivery of that information, because it's the information that's plugging the hole when you feel butthurt that you're getting ghosted. But it's that informational flow that's important to them that they consume. And even though they don't call you back, or they don't email you back, they're receiving it, they're consuming it, trying to get their ducks in a row, because they'll get up in their head, I don't want to bother Grant. You know, I'm not ready yet. I got to get some stuff together for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to call them. And then I do, right? Now, of course, there is a small minority in there that don't call you, that do go buy with something else. That's just a hazard of the game. But it's that moment that I just spent a lot of time with you on, that in that prospecting moment in that house, spend as much time qualifying it as you can and setting up that first day to really lock it in with them on content. This is the content you're going to get. Here's how it's going to come to you. And I'm going to call you from time to time to make sure you're getting it. And I'm in the field all the time. So if I see one that's a hottie, I'll preview it, snap some pictures, and send them to you. You just try to, with a buyer, you have to start to act as if you already represent them even without something signed, and you got to go be the buyer. That's what I tell Laura. We don't have buyers, Laura. I'm the buyer. We don't have buyers. I'm the buyer. So you treat me like I'm the hottest buyer you have, and if you don't get me the stuff when I need the stuff, I will cheat on you, right? That's what I tell her because buyers have a whole different sense of urgency. We get lulled into this. Well, we sign a buyer client contract. Yeah. People break those all the time when you don't serve, right? So yes, yes, it does happen, but keep going with the content until you're certain they bought with somebody else. There is no ghost. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as you prospected them correctly and you ask those questions, it's not like their plans just suddenly changed, right? Good. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And they love that. They well, listen. Not only do they love it, you talk about competition lists. You set up the competition list lane, and then you just work that lane like a rented mule, and you get so far out in front of everybody. It's just not fair. You're just so far out in front of everybody. And good people are totally guilted into working only with you when you just outwork people. I've had a lot of people like recently say to me, and I didn't think they were appreciating me, like, man, you work your ass off for us. Like we appreciate it. It comes out of nowhere, right? That's when you know you have good clients. So good. Bravo. All right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. They have, listen, listen, people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So if you're working hard for somebody and you sense they don't appreciate you, that's the beginning of the end. You can do a takeaway, say, listen, I'm just not so sure that this service is something that you want. Can you just confirm that with me? Because I don't want to bother you. Do a takeaway and just end it, right? If you sense it intuitively, first of all, did you work hard? Because then if you didn't, it's your problem. If you weren't out in front of it, you're the one. But if you did do that and they're not appreciating it, you need to call them out on it and end the relationship. Right? Good. Good. Anybody else tonight? Because it's 8 o'clock. I just realized. Okay, buddy. Sure. Um, okay, we actually have done one for expireds. So it exists. Do you have a copy of the master script list? If not, I'm going to give it to you right now. And I'm going to put, okay, well, I'm going to read it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read it live because I'm not gonna, yep, I'm not gonna bash. Yep, yep, all good. I just wanted to be clear for everybody because we got a lot of Griffins on here tonight. Master list, where is, yep, no doubt. Mhm. Danielle, do you wanna speak up? Danielle, open your mic, please. Yeah. Tell them about the gal you met. Yeah. Yeah, so let me wrap up one thing. So the point being is that she got somebody who didn't answer the door, and she got somebody who really was appreciative of the help. I mean, you're going to find that. So just cutting to the chase, just working through the script quickly. You'll have to just go through it on your own. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but all we did was we took the words that we read. Look at Jason. This business is really simple. Tactically speaking, I've said this a lot of times. I'm going to have you take a screenshot, okay? So the first thing that we have to do is the strategy is to get listing prospects at or above the median. You've heard me say that, Jason, yeah? Amen, brother. Thank you for saying that. That's why I know you come all the time, because you know what I say all the time. I repeat it. So take a screenshot when this shows up here. Um, okay, because tactically, I got to make sure I'm showing my screen still. Hang on. Let's see. Yeah, hang on. I want to show something else. Um, Window. I want to show this first. Screen check out digital. What? Okay. Tell me when you guys can see a mind map. Okay. Should be able to see a mind map. No? Yeah, weird. Never had. Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, let me try this. I'm going to try to see the entire thing. Okay, can you see my whole entire screen now? Okay, good. So, Jason, I want you to take a screenshot of this. Okay. Because that's it. That's the plan that we're executing tactically. The strategy, the primary goal of acquiring listing prospects at or above the median is all part of the business model, all part of this class. But that is the tactic, is to say 52 weeks of the year, you own a business, you better be working on new business development. Specifically, you go right after expireds and for sale by owners. Danielle's first listing is actually a for sale by owner. So she's door knocking, expireds in FSBOs presumably, and calling either or, right? So it just says very much what to do with your time. If you want to know what to do with your time, you pick one listing at the beginning of the week, you prepare a seller package, you add it to your contact pipeline manager, period. That's a lead. Then that package, you door knock, you put it in your front seat, you drive by that car 5 business days in a row. If you do not get them on the 6th day, you drop it off. And it has a cover letter that's very specific to that expired FSBO. Then if you can get a telephone number with Pablo's help, you can call 5 days in a row to see if they got it. Okay. I'm not going to get into the letter sequence yet because I just think you should be doing this. And on your contact pipeline manager that we give you for free, the worst case that can happen is you're going to do this 44 times out of 52 weeks because the animal brain's going to forget, it's going to chicken out, it's going to go on vacation, it's going to get sick. So you would have 44 people on your CPM, contact pipeline manager, that were all still lead status, but they had all gotten a seller package. That'd be the worst thing that happens if you just did this consistently, right? Now, out of those, it's going to be what Danielle's already experienced. One was a no. Guy wouldn't answer the phone. It's a no. The door. He blew her off. She could have dropped it off. She could mail it. She could still fight for that. But I think what she's realizing already is, okay, guy knew I was there, didn't answer the phone. He's hiding behind it. I'm in the door. I'm going to go somewhere else. But she got a yes from that lady. She also got a yes that's already led to one of her new listings. Now, that was a telemarket call versus a door knock, but same thing. Same result. She already has one new listing. So the formula is already working for her, right? Christine is pretty close to the same result too. So now that's how that works. Now you come back and go, okay, I can make one of those packages, which is why I said to Paul today, it's a must that people make the packages. So now I got a package in my hand. Hey, Paul, I'm Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. I was stopping by because I saw your beautiful home online and I noticed it didn't sell. So I'd like to give you some information to help you sell it next time. May I give this to you? Right? So if it's yes, just so you know, I took the time to customize. It includes this, this, and this. You already know all this. You know it. There's nothing new. I keep saying this. I'm not going to open up the kimono someday and there's going to be something new. It's the same thing. All we did was tweak the phone call language because you're at the door. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I've shown you the tactical plan. I've shown you tactically what to say. Make the package once a week. Pick one, door knock it 5 days in a row. Just do one a week. I'll change your life if you do. Got it? Okay. Very good. Okay, guys, I got to call it a night because it's past. I don't like to go too long on these things. So it's a long call tonight because we got 2 pieces of it. But I'm just telling you, execute this simple plan because it's working for people, right? Not just me. All right, Jason, you're in the hot seat, brother. You got to go out and do it. We'll be looking for your results next. Okay, gang. Yep. All right, gang. We'll see you later. Have a good night. See you on the other side. You're welcome.